The night the world lost Sam Cooke was one that would haunt history forever. A single gunshot in a cheap Los Angeles motel ended the life of a man whose voice had already changed the sound of America. But before that night, before the headlines screamed of scandal and controversy, Sam Cooke was more than a singer. He was a symbol, a pioneer, a star whose rise seemed unstoppable and whose fall seemed unthinkable. To understand the mystery, one must go back to the beginning, to a childhood shaped by faith and gospel. Born in 1931 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, Sam grew up in the church, the son of a preacher who believed in discipline, righteousness, and song. His father's sermons filled the room, but it was Sam's voice that lingered in the air like something otherworldly. By the time he was a teenager, his gift was undeniable. People said his singing could shake your soul, could move you in ways you couldn't explain. And they were right. Sam Cooke's journey into music was not an accident, it was destiny. In Chicago, where his family later moved, he found his stage in gospel quartets, groups that gave him structure, harmony, and an audience. It was with the Soul Stirrers that his name first began to carry weight. Here was a young man with the voice of an angel, but with something more. A charisma, a magnetism. People didn't just hear him, they believed him. And the gospel, as powerful as it was, could not contain him. By the mid-1950s, Cooke made the leap that would forever alter the course of American music. He crossed over from gospel to secular. It was a decision some called betrayal, but Sam saw it differently. He believed his gift was meant for the world, not just the church pews. With his silky tone, he didn't just sing songs, he seduced them, dressed them in elegance, and delivered them like whispered promises. Songs like You Send Me captured hearts across the nation, and in 1957, Sam Cooke was no longer just a gospel singer. He was the new face of soul. But here's where the mystery begins to creep in. Success is never simple, and for a black man in America during the 1950s and 60s, it was dangerous. Cooke was not just a performer. He was a businessman, an innovator, a man determined to control his own destiny. Unlike many of his peers, he refused to bow to the exploitative contracts of record labels. He demanded ownership of his masters. He launched his own publishing company. He wanted more than fame, he wanted power. And in doing so, he made enemies. The industry was not built for men like Sam Cooke. It thrived on exploitation, on keeping artists in check, on silencing voices that demanded too much. But Sam refused to be silenced. Behind the scenes, he was working with leaders of the civil rights movement. He was financing projects that spoke of equality and justice. His anthem, A Change Is Gonna Come, became more than a song. It was a prophecy, a weapon of hope, a rallying cry in a divided America. And when Sam sang it, you believed change was not just possible, but inevitable. Yet, with power comes danger. The closer Cooke moved toward independence, the more shadows began to gather around him. Strange business disputes emerged. He was seen as difficult, reckless, too ambitious. And in the turbulent climate of 1960s America, ambition from a black man was not just frowned upon, it was punished. By 1964, Sam Cooke stood at the peak of his career. He was a superstar, beloved across races, adored across continents. Yet beneath the surface, storm clouds were forming. His personal life was a battlefield. Marital troubles, rumors of affairs, tensions with business partners. Friends described him as restless, distracted, as though he sensed something was coming. And maybe he did. On the night of December 11th, 1964, those shadows caught up with him. Cooke checked into the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. What happened next remains one of the most disputed stories in music history. Officially, he was shot by the motel manager, a woman named Bertha Franklin, after a supposed altercation involving a young woman who had accompanied him there. The police accepted her story quickly. Too quickly. According to Franklin, Sam had burst into the office half naked, demanding to know where the woman had gone with his clothes and money. A struggle broke out, and Franklin claimed she shot him in self-defense. Thought it sounded simple, perhaps even believable. But for those who knew Sam Cooke, it was anything but. His family, his friends, and his fans refused to accept the official narrative. The questions came fast and never stopped. Why would a man of his stature end up in such a place? Why was the investigation so rushed, so shallow? Why were there inconsistencies in the testimonies? And why, in the aftermath of his death, did it feel as though the world wanted to move on, to bury the questions with the man himself? The story, as told by police, painted Sam Cooke as reckless, aggressive, and out of control. But to many, this was a deliberate distortion, an attempt to tarnish his image, to make the world believe his death was his own fault. His supporters saw something darker at play, a cover-up, perhaps even an assassination, meant to silence a man who had grown too powerful, too outspoken, too dangerous to the establishment. And this is where the mystery truly begins. Sam Cooke's death was not just the end of a life, it was the beginning of a legend. A story riddled with unanswered questions, contradictions, and shadows that refused to fade. More than half a century later, people still ask, who really killed Sam Cooke? Was it an accident of circumstance, or was it murder disguised as chaos? The stage was set, the curtain pulled, and the world would never be the same. But the truth lay somewhere in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. The morning after Sam Cooke's death, the headlines broke like a thunderclap. Singer shot in motel, the papers read, a crude summary for the end of a legend. But the details were already twisted, already warped by the narrative police wanted the world to believe. To them, Sam was a man undone by his own recklessness, a celebrity destroyed not by conspiracy, but by his own flaws. Yet for those who knew him, the story didn't sit right. Sam was no saint. His friends admitted as much. He loved women, he loved a good time, he lived fast. But the version told by the Hacienda Motel's manager, Bertha Franklin, was riddled with inconsistencies. According to Franklin, Sam had checked in with a young woman named Eliza Boyer. Later that night, Boyer claimed she fled the room in fear, taking Sam's clothes and money with her. Half naked and enraged, Sam allegedly chased her to the motel office, demanding answers. Franklin said he burst in, violent and threatening, forcing her to defend herself with a pistol. It seemed like a neat explanation. The police accepted Franklin's testimony almost without question. They didn't push her on details. They didn't dig deeper into Boyer's account, which changed more than once. They didn't question why Sam, a wealthy star, would suddenly transform into a desperate madman in such a short span of time. No fingerprints were taken on the gun. No forensic work was done. No one seemed interested in piecing together the truth. And just like that, the case was closed. Justifiable homicide, they called it. End of story. But it wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Sam's family was furious. His widow, Barbara, rejected the official version outright. She insisted Sam had been set up, lured into a trap. His business associates whispered of deals gone wrong, of enemies made in the record industry. Civil rights activists wondered if his outspoken views had made him a target. And then there were his millions of fans who refused to accept that their hero had died in such a tawdry, senseless way. The contradictions piled higher. Boyer's background came into question, rumors of connections to pimps, of working as an escort, of being placed in Sam's path deliberately. Franklin's testimony also raised doubts. She said she had wrestled with Sam, yet her body showed no signs of a struggle. She claimed she fired in fear, Yet she also admitted to beating him with a broomstick before pulling the trigger. The details didn't add up, and the more you studied them, the stranger it all became. Then there was the timing. Sam Cooke had just negotiated greater control over his music, something almost unheard of for a black artist in the 1960s. He was on the verge of building an empire, a self-sustaining legacy that would free him from the chains of the recording industry. He was also funneling money into civil rights causes, rubbing shoulders with leaders who were under constant FBI surveillance. To some, this wasn't coincidence. This was the motive. Still, no official investigation followed. The authorities seemed relieved to put the case to bed quickly, to label it closed and move on. But that silence, that eagerness to shut the door, only fueled the whispers. At Sam's funeral, over 200,000 mourners came to say goodbye. His body lay in state, dressed in a white suit, a symbol of purity and peace. But as people filed past his coffin, many whispered the same thing. This wasn't right. The man they adored, the man who gave the world a change is gonna come, had been silenced, and the truth of how and why was still hidden in shadows. In the weeks that followed, new rumors emerged. Some said Sam had been carrying large amounts of cash that mysteriously vanished after his death. Others claimed industry figures had grown nervous about his independence and had orchestrated his downfall. Still others pointed to the strange overlap between Sam's death and the string of black leaders who were also silenced in that era: Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers. To some, Sam Cooke's death wasn't random at all. It was part of a pattern, and so the story refused to fade. Instead, it grew darker, stranger, more tangled. What had really happened in that motel? Who was Eliza Boyer really working for? And why did the authorities seem so desperate to close the book on one of the most shocking deaths in music history? The deeper you looked, the less sense it made. Sam Cooke was more than a singer. By the early 1960s, he had become something far greater: a businessman, an activist, a man rewriting the rules of music and power. And in a time when black artists were expected to sing, smile, and obey, Sam refused to fit the mold. He was building an empire. Not just a career, not just a string of hit records, but an actual empire. He founded his own publishing company, his own record label, his own management group. He was determined to own his masters, to control every note of the music he created. In doing so, he was carving out independence that few in the industry had ever dared dream of. And he wasn't doing it just for himself. Sam wanted to create a path for other black artists, to shield them from the exploitation that had swallowed so many before. It was revolutionary. It was dangerous. Record companies had long thrived on taking advantage of young musicians, locking them into contracts that stripped away both their money and their freedom. Sam was breaking that cycle. He wasn't just a star. He was a disruptor. He was rewriting the business, shifting power away from the industry and toward the artists themselves. That kind of ambition made him a hero to some and a threat to others. But Sam Cooke's fight didn't end in the studio. Outside of music, he was aligning himself with the civil rights movement. He had met Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and Jim Brown, forming friendships with men who were as defiant as they were powerful. He believed music could be more than entertainment. It could be a weapon, a message, a call to arms. His song, "A Change Is Gonna Come," was born from that fire. The track was unlike anything Sam had written before. It was haunting, heavy, dripping with the weight of history. "It's been a long time coming," he sang, "but I know a change is gonna come. Oh yes, it will." When those words left his lips, it was as if the future itself had spoken through him. The song became an anthem of hope for people who had been denied it for too long. But to the establishment, it sounded like a warning. Sam knew he was walking a dangerous road. He had seen what happened to men who dared challenge the system. Medgar Evers was assassinated in 1963. Malcolm X would fall in 1965. Martin Luther King Jr. was already a marked man. To raise your voice against injustice was to sign your name in blood. And Sam Cooke, with his fame, his money, and his growing influence, was becoming too powerful to ignore. Some of his friends believed he sensed it. They described him as restless, almost paranoid, in the months leading up to his death. He spoke about enemies, about people trying to keep him down. He wanted to push forward, but he was also aware of the dangers. And yet, he didn't stop. He couldn't. His destiny was too big to turn away from. Behind the curtain of success, the shadows thickened. Rumors swirled about industry figures who resented his independence, men who saw him as an obstacle to be removed. Others whispered of government eyes on him, the FBI monitoring his ties to civil rights leaders, compiling dossiers as they did with so many black icons of the era. To the powerful, Sam Cooke wasn't just a singer. He was a problem dot, and problems, in that time, often didn't live long. The more Sam pushed for ownership, the more resistance he met. Deals turned sour. Promises evaporated. Friends became distant. He was moving too fast, too boldly, and it felt as though invisible forces were moving against him. Even the people around him began to look at suspicious business partners who suddenly seemed untrustworthy. Associates whose loyalty cracked under pressure. It is here that the conspiracy takes root. Some believe Sam Cooke's death was no accident, no random tragedy in a seedy motel. They believe it was orchestrated, calculated, designed to look like chaos, but built on precision. The perfect silencing of a man who was on the brink of changing not just music, but society itself. And if that's true, then the question becomes terrifying. Who wanted him gone? The record industry? The government? Organized crime? Or was it all of them, threads woven together into a single deadly outcome? The more you examine the world Sam Cooke was moving through, the darker the picture becomes. He wasn't just a singer chasing fame. He was a revolutionary walking into a storm. And storms like that rarely let their prophets walk away. December 11th, 1964. A night that should have been like any other. Sam Cooke had just finished a dinner meeting. He was dressed sharp, his spirit restless, his mind racing with plans for the future. But as the hours passed, his path would lead him not to triumph, but to tragedy. He spent the evening with friends, laughing, drinking, carrying himself with that same magnetic charm. But something about the night felt unsettled. Accounts of his mood vary. Some said he was joyous, full of energy, alive with ambition. Others said he seemed distracted, preoccupied, as if something was weighing on him. By the time he left in his brand new Ferrari, he was accompanied by a young woman named Eliza Boyer, a woman whose role in his final hours remains one of the deepest mysteries of all. They drove through Los Angeles, neon lights reflecting off polished chrome. Boyer would later claim she had been with Sam against her will, that she feared him. But others who saw them together described nothing unusual, no signs of distress, no reason to believe anything was wrong. Whatever the truth, they eventually arrived at the Hacienda Motel, a small, unassuming place on South Figueroa Street. Why Sam Cooke, one of the biggest stars in America, would check into such a rundown spot remains one of the central puzzles. Was it his choice driven by impulse? Or was he led there, guided into a trap from which he would never escape? The events that followed are a web of contradictions. Boyer later testified that once inside the room, Sam tried to force himself on her. Terrified, she said, she grabbed her clothes and fled, taking his wallet and his pants with her. Barely dressed, she claimed she ran to safety. But her story shifted over time, details changing, contradictions piling higher. Was she truly a victim? Or was she bait? Moments later, Sam burst out of the room, enraged, half naked, pounding on doors. demanding to know where the woman had gone. Witnesses heard his voice echoing through the motel's thin walls, urgent, desperate, filled with anger. He stormed to the motel office, where the manager, Bertha Franklin, was working. What happened next has been retold, reimagined, and questioned for decades. Franklin claimed that Sam burst in, violent, threatening her life. She said he grabbed her, demanding to know Boyer's whereabouts. She fought him off, striking him with a broom handle. When he kept advancing, she fired her pistol. A single shot. Sam Cooke collapsed, bleeding on the floor, his life fading with every second. But Franklin's version never satisfied those who knew him. For one, Sam Cooke was a trained boxer, a strong man in his prime. Could a motel manager have really overpowered him with a broomstick? And why was he shot in such a way that seemed less like self-defense and more like an execution? More questions emerged. Why did Boyer run off with his money? Why was she never properly investigated? Why did the police so quickly accept Franklin's account, declaring the case closed almost immediately? And why, in a city filled with crime, was so little effort put into the death of one of America's most famous singers? Sam's last words, according to Franklin, were chilling. As he lay on the floor, his blood staining the cheap carpet, he muttered, "Lady, you shot me." Then silence. The voice that had once moved nations was gone. By dawn, the news spread across America. Sam Cooke died at just 33 years old. His death was written off as his own doing, the tragic result of recklessness, lust, and violence. But for his family, his friends, and his fans, the story was far from over. To them, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a coincidence. It was something darker, and the more you look at that night, the stranger it becomes. The missing money, the shifting testimonies, the rushed investigation, the smear campaign that followed, painting Sam Cooke as a violent man, tarnishing his reputation just as the civil rights movement was gaining momentum. For many, it was too perfect to be random, too neat to be true. In the morning after Sam Cooke's death, headlines screamed of scandal. Newspapers painted him as reckless, drunk, and violent, a man whose downfall was of his own making. But to those who loved him, his fans, his family, his fellow musicians, the official version sounded less like truth and more like character assassination. The first red flag was the speed of the investigation. Within 48 hours, the LAPD had closed the case, ruling Cooke's death a justifiable homicide. No grand jury, no extended questioning, no deeper digging into the suspicious testimonies. For a man as famous as Sam Cooke, the lack of scrutiny was staggering. Then came the character attacks. Mainstream media focused on Boyer's claims, on Cooke's supposed violent behavior, and on his state of undress when he was killed. His humanitarian work, his contributions to the civil rights movement, his groundbreaking role in black-owned music, all were buried under a mountain of insinuations and slander. It felt deliberate, as though someone wanted to make sure that Sam Cooke would not die a martyr, but a scandal. The unanswered questions piled high. Why did Eliza Boyer run off with his wallet and never face serious charges? Why was Bertha Franklin's account accepted without challenge, despite contradictions and oddities? And perhaps most importantly, why was Sam Cooke a man who controlled his music, fought for his rights, and planned to use his platform to uplift a black community silenced at the peak of his power? Some believe it was organized crime. At the time, Cooke was pushing back against the music industry's exploitation, demanding ownership of his masters, his publishing rights, and his business deals. That alone made him enemies among powerful men who had profited off black talent for decades. Others point to the FBI and government agencies, who had already been keeping tabs on influential black leaders like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Sam Cooke was not just a singer, he was a symbol of empowerment. His anthem, "A Change Is Gonna Come," had become the soundtrack of a generation demanding justice. Was it possible that his death was orchestrated, not random? Even friends close to Cooke voiced suspicion. Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and James Brown all questioned the official story. To them, Sam's death wasn't a drunken tragedy. It was an assassination. But beyond conspiracy, one fact remains undeniable. The world lost a once-in-a-lifetime voice. At only 33, Cooke had already transformed American music. He brought gospel into pop, soul into the mainstream, and he opened doors for generations of black artists. His music continues to inspire, his words continue to echo, and his mysterious death continues to haunt thought in the decades since. Sam Cooke's reputation has risen above the smears. His legacy is celebrated, his songs immortalized, and his death questioned more than ever. Because legends don't fade, they cast long shadows. Years passed, but the strange details of Sam Cooke's death never stopped haunting those who remembered him. Friends whispered, fans debated, and every anniversary of his passing stirred the same uneasy questions. The case was closed, but never truly resolved. Eliza Boyer disappeared into obscurity. Some claimed she changed her name and moved far away, while others insisted she remained tied to the underworld that may have ensnared Sam that night. Her testimony had been riddled with gaps, yet it became the foundation for the official narrative. Why was her word enough to seal history? Bertha Franklin, the motel manager who fired the fatal shots, stood by her story until the end of her life. But there were details that never added up. Witnesses recalled Sam's cries for help, his frantic pounding on doors, his demand to be heard. And yet, his character was flipped into that of an aggressor. Why was no one willing to peel back the layers? For Sam's family, the pain was doubled. Not only had they lost him, but they also had to live with the stain of the accusations thrown upon him. His daughter, Linda, spoke years later about the ache of seeing her father remembered not just as a legend, but as a scandal. For her, the truth was clear. Sam Cooke was not the monster the newspapers painted. He was a man betrayed, trapped, and silenced. Theories kept surfacing. Some pointed to the mob's stranglehold on the music industry, noting how Sam had dared to break free, demanding ownership of his publishing rights. Others whispered about government surveillance, about men in power who feared the rise of a voice that crossed racial divides and emboldened the oppressed. Even fellow musicians carried suspicion to their graves. Bobby Womack, Aretha Franklin, and Ray Charles all felt something was off. James Brown said it outright. He was too important to die that way. Meanwhile, the songs Sam left behind became eerie monuments. A change is gonna come carried a prophetic weight, as though he had written not just for his time, but for the generations that followed. His smooth voice, his fearless spirit, seemed to echo a warning that change comes at a price, and that those who fight hardest for it often fall first thought in documentaries, interviews, and articles. His death continues to be revisited. Some investigators argue that reopening the case could finally shed light, that the files contain holes big enough to slip entire truths through. But history is resistant. Officially, Sam Cooke remains a man killed in self-defense during a drunken rage. Unofficially, he is a fallen soldier in a battle we still don't fully understand. And so, Sam Cooke lives on in duality. The pioneer who gave soul music its wings, and the mystery who died too soon. His voice remains timeless, but his silence remains louder. Every time A Change Is Gonna Come plays, it feels less like a song, and more like a haunting echo of a man asking us not to forget, not to accept, not to move on. In the years after Sam Cooke's death, his absence felt like a wound in American music. The world had lost not just a singer, but a revolutionary. And yet, in a way, Sam refused to disappear. His velvet, commanding, soul-stirring voice continued to rise, even as his body lay silent. A Change Is Gonna Come became more than a song. It became an anthem. It was sung on picket lines, whispered in jail cells, shouted in rallies, and carried in the hearts of millions who believed the promise of justice was worth the fight. For the civil rights movement, Sam Cooke became both martyr and messenger. His music a prophecy that outlived his life, but the mystery of his death only deepened the impact. Every new generation that discovered his music also discovered the strange story of that motel room in Los Angeles. Why was his case closed so quickly? Why was his reputation dragged through the mud? Why was one of the most influential black artists of his era reduced in his final moments to a tabloid scandal? The conspiracies never ended. Some music historians argue that Sam's push for independence, his record label, his publishing company, and his demand to own what he created made him a direct threat to an industry that thrived on exploitation. Others see a darker hand, connecting his death to the wave of assassinations that struck down Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and other black leaders who challenged the status quo. But through it all, Sam Cooke's legacy grew. His songs were covered by Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin, and countless others. His style shaped Al Green, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and the entire blueprint of modern R&B. The echoes of Sam's voice can be heard in every soulful note that came after him. For his family, the mystery was never just about conspiracies. It was about dignity. They fought to preserve the memory of the man behind the headlines, the man who wrote songs for his children, who dreamed of justice, who carried himself with pride in an era that tried to strip him of it. Even today, documentaries, podcasts, and true crime series continue to revisit his death. Each retelling adds new layers of suspicion, each theory widening the cracks in the official version. The world may never agree on what truly happened in that motel, but one thing remains certain. Sam Cooke's story is unfinished, and perhaps it always will be, because legends don't die in neat endings. They leave behind mysteries that pulse like unfinished songs. They leave questions that hang in the air, like the last note of a melody that refuses to fade. Sam Cooke was silenced, but his silence became louder than any scream. And with every play of his music, the world is reminded of what was stolen, and of what can never be taken away.